that's what it comes down to. I can spend more time with my parents. I go see my parents just about every day, help them out. I'm active in the church. I'm able to help other people out in the church as well. So it's basically taken the focus off on me per se. Like I've got to make, to have this job and, just enjoy relationships with other people.
Well, Jeff, thanks for joining me today on our Tax and Code Success Chronicles. For everybody checking in, we have Jeff McDaniel, who I'm excited to have everybody hear your story. So many cool pieces and bits of your story that you and I talked a little bit about at the end of 2024. You were going off to get married, I think, on your honeymoon. And so we kind of had an abbreviated...
Oh, you remember that. That's right.
I sure did. Like, there's not too many people who I meet for the first time and we're matching suits. And so that yes. So much of that conversation is ingrained in my mind. So give everybody maybe the Jeff Introduction 101. So, actually, before we talk about your investment side, where did you come from?
My background was traditional IT from the standpoint, initially building architecture and systems and whatnot, and then I gravitated about 2000 to the startup arena, right? So would basically find startups that were either investor or A rounds, and so basically found a niche building software security companies along the way the last 20 years. And, obviously you get shares and everything with that. So that helps, or you get options. And then when the company IPOs or sells, you're in a much better spot. So I always went the equity play versus maybe a W-2. But it worked out really well. I think I had my count so far is 7 out of 8 cashes on the startups that I've been engaged with. And, I've got another one right now. So I might finish my career, 8 for 9. I'm retired, but I still dabble a little bit helping a startup.
All right. So something interesting there that I think might be, I don't want to say abnormal, but from the beginning of your maybe career then, you went a different route. Mm-hmm. Like most people in America would take the paycheck, would take the W-2, would just take the pure month after month or week after week pay. Why go the other route? Like what was it in your head that made you think that taking equity instead of maybe as big of a check at the beginning would be a better route?
Probably stems from my father and my grandfather, right? That you have, and not putting a W-2 down, right? That's just a different mindset that if you, and by the way, I would still technically an employee, think of it that way. But the reason why I went equity is if you keep risk on the table, or you put skin in the game, and you work hard and you practice your craft. Typically, if you're in a relationship with somebody that values you and what you're bringing, ultimately, look, you make more money at the end of the day. That's what it came down to. So if you believe in yourself and you believe in things you can do, you just find people that want to work with you because they see that same value, and it works out for both.
It's such a different idea than what I see on social media today. So much as social media talks about like maybe stair stepping or stepping stones. And what you're talking about is a lot of loyalty. Well, first of all, 2 things that I hear, right, is belief in yourself, belief that I'm capable and I value relationship. And the second one is I'm loyal. I want to build with somebody else instead of just trying to do everything by myself.
Yes. But there is a challenge with loyalty, right? And you know where I'm going with this is in the traditional company sense. Companies want you to be loyal to them, but loyalty anymore is to the shareholders and the board of directors, especially in a startup. So cash flow becomes an issue. It's the W-2 employees that get cut. So ultimately, the other thing I negated to add was I've owned properties since my first property. I was in high school. I bought my first house, I think either my senior year or just out of high school. And so I had a company back in high school that I was able to sell and made some decent money at it. But one of the things I learned, and the reason why we're talking today, is real estate can be hard if you don't know what you're doing, especially the rental market, because everybody says, well, I'm going to buy a property and I'm going to just rent it out and I'm going to make $1,000 a month, and there you go. Well, when you have repairs and you have unforeseen issues, well, I learned how to do a lot of my own work and follow code. And that's the way you really traditionally were successful. If you hired out, a plumbing issue or an electrical issue, you eat up all your profits for the year, right? And so then what you and I are talking about, it becomes, as long as you're motivated and as long as you put in the same effort that you would or greater for that W-2, your returns are just going to be much greater than what you're going to see with a W-2, right? Analogous to, how would you like to take $1 million and buy liens in Florida? I'm talking OTC. I'm not even talking spending time on bids, and make 18% of your money. And most people would love to take their IRA and double it in 10 years, right? That's the traditional. If you get 7 to 10%, in 10 years you can double your money. How would you like to, grow your IRA 60% in less than a year, right? And the game is, you pay a tax lien, or you buy a tax lien or a tax certificate. They pay you back in 30 to 45 days. You make your 5% on it. You take that money back and immediately put it back to work. Well, I don't care if you're dealing with $10,000 or $100,000. You do that, you're going to make 50, 60, 70% on your money in a 12-month calendar year.
I mean, that's an absurd rate of return for most people to hear.
It's absurd, but if you'd have said to me 2 years ago, when I kind of started looking at this and starting the journey of that, I'd have said, yeah, no, I'm okay. With LROs, right? Limited recourse obligations, I can make 10 to 13% on my own. I can make 15% on my own, but I'm carrying that cash a lot longer to be able to do that. The cash in, cash out. But again, it's the due diligence, right? So some of the principles of finding properties that are of value, that have not just intrinsic value, but not in a floodplain, right? That don't have issues around. So there is a methodology that you teach that says, hey, there's a high probability chance that when somebody receives a notice from the county that says somebody bought a tax certificate, they're going to turn around and right side that pretty quick. And those are the properties you want.
That's right. Well, you were in corporate America for quite a while. I think that most people, I want to come back to your real estate in high school, because that's such a fascinating side of it. But so many people would look at what you were doing and think that, you're a VC, not a VC, but you're in the startup world. It's I think what every...
I'm an angel investor.
Yeah, okay. It's what so many people would say was the dream or the goal, or that would be the ambition. So why, I won't say you left it, because obviously you still got a couple, but you're saying you're ending your career there. What made you open to doing something different?
So the fact is, still having a business mindset, running my own business, running my own company. It's funny. My wife, she's an artisan baker, right? And so a lot of times I'll sit at the kitchen table, I'll be on my laptop buying certificates, and she'll chuckle sometimes, like, are you actually working? So it doesn't maybe necessarily look like I'm working, but I'm on my computer 8 or 10 hours a day, sometimes looking for properties involved in, tax lien sales and things like that. But really what made me go this route, right? We all remember 2008, 2009, 2010. The other challenge with real estate, if you've got $100 million, who cares, right? You can buy $50 million of properties. And if you have a 50% drawdown, who cares? Life's still fine. But when you're still early in your career or halfway through, and you're leveraged, and you have 8 quads, and you have 2 single family homes plus a single family home you live in, and there's a drawdown, people are losing their jobs, and you have rents that are 60, 65% non-performing, that is a big problem for most people. And it was a big problem for me, right? I'm very transparent on what happened to me. So I had a huge step back financially that took me another 5 years to recover. And then I was fine. But again, nose to the grindstone, or, pushing a rock uphill is the word I will use, for 5 years. But this gave me the freedom when I got onto this path, kind of gave me the freedom to say, okay, I choose to set my work schedule. So if I want to take 2 weeks off to go to Hawaii and go to down to Key West with my fiance or my wife, great, I can do that, but I'm not going to have any necessarily revenue coming in for 2 weeks. I got back, you get back on the saddle. And so as much as you put into it, you'll definitely get out of it.
So many good things, because we've been having a lot of internal conversations about the things that you're just mentioning. So 2008, I got started, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years before 2008. So I'd been in the business for a little while. I was buying, I was wholesaling, I was flipping, doing all those things. And then 2008 hit.
Yep.
And it completely demolished my business and what we were doing. And it was interesting being in this space, because we knew what we were doing. We knew where it was going and what was going to happen and what the good buys were. But the capital was all gone. Like, my capital was gone. So much capital was gone. The banks withdrew their money. They weren't lending. And you're sitting around looking at the market like it's Black Friday of real estate in America, right? Like, I remember being in Vegas and in Phoenix and Florida. And I remember going around in Vegas in 2009 and 2010. And there were properties for sale, condos that were $25,000. And I remember looking at those same apartments or condos, and they were $125,000 in 2007 and 2008. And I remember going into a broker, and they would hand you a stack like that thick of like, hey, here's condos, go look at them. And then just tell me which ones you want. You can have all of them for $25,000 a piece. And thinking,
Yep.
I'm getting killed right now. Like, it was the most frustrated I've ever been in my career, because I knew what was happening. I knew that real estate was on sale like it had never been before. Everybody was panicking. Like, 401ks dropped, money was gone. And remember thinking, this is where the biggest transfer of wealth is happening. Because if people can buy for $25,000, single family homes that were worth 300 grand that are now 100 grand. If I can load up right now, the wealth creation is incredible. And sure enough, took 4 or 5 years, right? You mentioned that everybody's money came back, the market recovered. It took 5 years, but by buying at that point, people that bought condos for 25 grand now worth $125,000. That wealth creation in 3 or 4 or 5 years was incredible. And I remember sitting there thinking, I'll never let this happen to me again. That my whole career in real estate now is dedicated to making sure that when this happens again in my lifetime, I'm ready for it. Because I'm not doing that again, right? Because I'm going to be ready. So for the next 10 years, that's what I did. I tried everything, right? We tested every single thing. We tested rental properties. We tested more flipping and wholesaling, apartment buildings, and all of the real estate strategies, and realized that all of them still fluctuated with the market, and they weren't going to bring me through another recession. And then when we discovered tax lien investing and realized that it's mandated, like you were talking about that 18% rate of return, it's mandated by the government. And so when a recession hits and everything else bottoms out, people lose their jobs, enter the bond market, the stock market, ETFs, whatever it is, and they drop like crazy, tax liens don't change. So everybody else's money gets diminished, right? So they go into this recession, they go into an economy where it drops, and their money goes, $1 million becomes $500,000, 200 grand becomes 100 grand. And so when they exit the recession, that buying power is so far below, whereas you and I, we go into it realizing that we're just going to dump all of our money into tax liens. It's going to make 18%. So when we come out on the other side of that recession and everything's on sale, our money has actually grown, and our buying power, it exists like nobody else's. So our competition is gone, right? And so we're going to be able to go in and buy as much real estate as we want for pennies on the dollar. And that's what I think that's what you're saying right now. You're saying the same thing.
Yes. Yeah, so there's two aspects of that, right? There's the tax lien investing, right? That I've been doing. There's also the tax deed auctions, right? And so there's two trains of thought. If I was a brand new person, I'd be a baby. If I was out of college, just got married, building a family, had a full-time job, and I said, well, shoot, I want to buy a house. I want to get a house. Now, this is not easy. It takes time and dedication. but I would learn to basically be effective in participating in tax deed auctions, right? Don't get frustrated, don't overbid, but it's actually a perfect way for somebody to go in. And this is the way I get properties as well, not just vacant land, but houses. You have a $350,000 house that you get for $180,000 that maybe you have to put $100,000 into it, borrow the $100,000 from mom and dad, but you now all of a sudden step your game up. You're a brand new married couple, don't even have kids on the way yet, and you're in the house that you can retire in, right? And that's the way you do that. Don't pay $350,000 today, and then the next 2008, 2009 hit, because it will, and then you turn around and now your house is back $220,000. That'll take you 20 years to dig out from under that if you're lucky. Yeah. So then the other thing is properties, right? You look at vacant land. Don't just bid on vacant land. I've been able to pick up a bunch of properties in Florida that are oceanfront neighborhoods, and we're talking $80,000 to $100,000 per half acre that I was able to get for $20,000 and $30,000 on tax deeds. I was fortunate that somebody had passed away and their family the kids lived in California and Colorado, and they just didn't know that dad had this property. And so I was able to pick it up, and for whatever reason, nobody else wanted it. I think the hurricane just had come through Florida. But I was able to pick up 4 properties within a week. And if you look at, so it gives me options. I'm holding on to them right now. I can build, I can, build and sell. I can partner with a builder. There's a bunch of options that I have that tax deeds and tax liens give you as an investor. You're just not locked into a property like a rental property where you just can't get out of it.
Okay, so Jeff, let's take a step back if you don't mind. And when did you find tax lien code? So we are, May 15th, 2025. When did you first find and start your journey with tax lien code?
So I want to say it was initially 2 years ago.
Okay.
And my first meeting was, I have to think now. It was in Wilmington. I had 2 places in Chicago and Surf City area here, just north of Wilmington, and there was a meeting in Wilmington, and I said, "Hey, let me go see what this is about." So I think that was about. I don't think it was a year ago. I want to say that was 2 years ago.
Okay. When you first started, you'd had some real estate background. You bought a house in high school, which is crazy. If we have time, I want to come back to that story. How much were you planning on allocating into tax liens, tax deed, that type of investing?
So initially typically I look at it and say you have free cash you can afford to lose, and everything else. Initially I had set aside a $500,000 in, for deeds and auctions. And since then I've increased that to $1 million, right? That I've either got, it's not actively tied up. I've probably got 80% tied up. I've got auctions that I've got another, call it $250,000 that I'm going to be bidding on in Florida here, starting Putnam County, starting to be June 1st.
June 1st. Okay. So you've now allocated $1 million to investing in tax deeds specifically.
Tax deeds and tax liens. I think today I've got about $400,000 in tax liens.
Okay.
In fact, mostly in Florida. I like the Florida market. There's a lot of OTC sales. The other, and here's the other key. OTC. What I do is I just don't go and cherry pick and say, oh, here's a random property.
Yeah.
I look for builders in upcoming areas. Here's a trick that nobody is, I don't know if they know this. Builders typically don't pay property tax on their vacant lots until they build a house and they go to sell it. Then they'll go ahead and true up. So what I do is I look for up and coming neighborhoods that have a lot of open lots that builders are starting to build, and I will go through and literally entire swaths. I might buy 2 or 3 years at 100 lots at a time.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to have a gamut of people watching this video, and I hope everybody watches this because you're giving away so much incredible information. But let's take a step back just maybe to explain the process and how it works so everybody that isn't, that there's maybe where you were 2 years ago understands. When a tax lien, when somebody doesn't pay their property taxes, the county puts a lien on their property and sends that lien to a primary auction. And in Florida, that primary auction is just once a year. It's actually coming up. We're getting ready for it right now. It'll be over the next 3 or 4 weeks in here in end of May and beginning in June. And the auction starts at 18%. And if you're involved in that primary auction, which we are, we'll invest $1.5 million to $2 million this month in Florida at the primary auction. It's a competitive auction, and it starts at 18%. In order to win the certificate, you have to bid down. And the person that's willing to take the lowest rate of return is the one that gets that tax lien certificate. When the property owner pays, we get the interest rate that we bid it down to. However, Florida is unique a little bit in that the state mandate is that the investor gets at least a 5% return, which is kind of what you were talking about before, because if they pay off in the first month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is, we get at least a 5% penalty return, yep, even if it's a month in. So we can get this incredible rates of return if we compound that money month after month after month. If nobody buys that certificate at the primary auction, it goes into a new stash that we call OTC. It's an abbreviation of over the counter, which means that anybody can go in to the websites and just buy directly with no bid, no auction, no nothing, and you're buying that certificate at the state mandated at 18% rate of return. So that may be quick catch up there for everybody else, Jeff. So Jeff is going in and buying them just over the counter, not participating in the primary auction. He has put in a 400 grand. Are they all OTCs, Jeff? All 400 grand that you've invested in Florida, that's all?
Yes, they're all OTCs.
So how many liens is that? So $400,000 means you bought roughly how many tax liens?
Yeah, so when you and I first met, it was 168, and so now I'm northwards of close to 400 tax liens that I currently own. It's a lot to manage, right? There's a spreadsheet that I manage. You got to keep an eye on it, right? You got to keep on an eye on the redemption period and things like that. But it's also fun.
So maybe for everybody following along as you're watching this, Jeff has $400,000 deployed into an investment tax lien certificates that are paying you 18% interest. So real quick then, hold on, my math off top of my head, I'm gonna mess this number up. But an annualized number is $72,000 in profit off of that $400,000. Right? Like if it doesn't compound, if it takes a year and you're just getting that straight 18%, $72,000 on 400 grand, Jeff, is an incredible number.
It is. Yeah. So I've made double that selling properties as well. So and my wife's seen how much I work. I mean, I'm not working 40 hours a week, and just being transparent again, as much as you put in, you're going to get back, but I'm probably putting 10 to 20 hours a week in it at a minimum. And last year, it was about $140,000 is what I made just with the tax liens and the tax deeds, profits from tax deed sales.
So you're going to split our audience right now, Jeff. You're going to have some people who are so inspired to hear that you just made $140,000 by putting in 10 to 20 hours a week. And I love what you're saying, that it's what you put in. Could you have made more than that if you would have put more in? Yeah, probably.
Oh, let me preface that. That's today. When I started, I was putting in 40 hours a week at it because there was a lot to learn. There's a lot of effort. One of the things you'll find is after a year or two into this, if you put forth the effort and you work on your level of excellence, you'll be able to pare that down in half and be just as efficient. But to answer your question, yes, if I were to double my time and look in Colorado or Arizona or other states, then yes, absolutely, what you put into it, you can get out of it. If I had more cash to deploy, I could make even more. But yeah.
So that number was 140, you said?
It was actually $142,000 is what the exact number was.
I love that you know that number exactly. Okay, so you're gonna have half the people are so inspired right now, Jeff, to be like, well, that's an incredible return. I want to be Jeff. I want to be Jeff right now. And then the other half are gonna say, well, that's not fair. Or I work harder than that. I spend 40, 60, 80 hours a week working. And it's not fair that Jeff makes more money than I do working 10 to 20 hours.
So again, it's the amount of risk. See, that's the whole thing in business. There's no fairness. It's all about risk and the level of effort. If you're willing to bring cash to the table, and you're willing to put your skin in the game, then why shouldn't somebody that starts a company with a great idea that literally doesn't take a salary for 3 years and they make $50 million or $100 million on a sale of a security company, people say, well, that's not fair. But they didn't take a salary for 3 years, and they put their financial jeopardy of their family at risk to be able to get that. But the other thing I'll tell you, look, I and my wife knows, I want to say I'm an average guy, but I'm an average guy with just average thoughts, right? I do aspire to be better. And so if you can figure out a strategy, figure out a plan, you start with the base of what you're doing, Brian, and you figure out the strategy, like the whole builder thing, right? That's super easy. Why can I spend 20 hours a week? Because I just look for lots and put them in Orange and others that are builder run, and I just go and strafe those. I don't even worry about anything else. So that right there pairs 50% of my time and effort trying to find OTC properties, right? It becomes very easy to be able to manage that. And then the other is, if the fairness is, if you put skin in the game, you work at it, you can actually help people. And this is the thing that we don't really talk about, but Ben Unfried, he was one of the guys that I actually met. I don't know if you know who Ben is.
Of course, I know Ben.
At this meeting, phenomenal individual. And this is actually what motivated me to do this, because I've done this, is you get a property and it's a tax deed auction, and guess what happens? They get a notice that says you must vacate, whatever the case may be, so you can work with them instead of just throwing them out on the street saying, hey, sorry, too bad, I own the property. You give them an incentive. I think Ben called it cash for keys, right? And so I kind of coined that phrase, and I've done that a few times where I'll say, hey, here's $5,000 or $10,000. If you take care of the property, I'll give you 60 days or 30 days or 90 days to get out. You can kind of right side them up. You can actually write a little contract with them if you want, so they can be your quote unquote legitimate renter for 90 days. So they can say, yeah, we did rent a house for 90 days, and you kind of right side them, if you will. So you can help people doing this as well.
I love that aspect of it. When we first started Tax Lien Code, I got offended really, really often because we'd see these comments on social media. And I mean, I've been called everything and anything. In some people's viewpoint, man, I'm making camp down by the devil. Like, I'm the scum of the scum. And like, it was really offensive to me for a long time because I felt like I was trying to do the opposite. Obviously, we're in it to make money. If we weren't making money, like, that's philanthropy, that's charity, which we do a lot of, but tax lien investing allows us to kind of do both, right? Like, if we didn't exist, and this is what I try to tell people all the time, if tax lien investors or tax deed investors didn't exist, the county would just kick people out of their houses. The government doesn't care. You didn't pay your taxes, we're foreclosing and you're off on the street. That's how it would work if tax liens weren't a thing. So by the government issuing a tax lien, we're actually enabling the property owner to stay in their property longer than if the county didn't do it. And so it took me a long time to realize, like, some people just are never going to understand that. Some people are never going to understand that if we didn't exist, if Jeff Daniels didn't come in and Brian Peterson didn't come in and pay and buy a tax lien, the county is just coming in and kicking the property owner out. They don't care.
And we see that, by the way, with other three-letter agencies in the government.
Yeah.
They do that. You're a business owner. You don't pay your taxes. You have $100,000 cash in the bank. IRS doesn't care. It comes in, it levies that, it pulls that, sometimes without a court mandate,
Yeah.
right? And next thing you know, you gotta let go 10 or 12 employees. It happens all the time. At least, people aren't being kicked out of their homes, like you say. You talk about fairness, and why is this fair that somebody can make 18% and everybody else makes 3% on their savings in their bank if you're lucky? The other aspect is being able to understand when you have an individual or groups of individuals that are smarter than you, right? And so one of the best things I did was hired, and I don't remember his name, I apologize, really good guy, basically an investor coach, somebody that had done this for the last 30 or 40 years. You pay for it, right? But what he was able to do with me is sit down over a 4-month period and understand my goals, understand what I want to do. And I can tell you, I literally went from being what I thought was a savvy property investor to, holy cow, there's all this stuff out there. Like, I'll give you a prime example that blew my mind. One of the last meetings, he says, well, if you want to buy a house and you find somebody that wants to sell a house and you want to make money on it, and you want to flip it, why even have a contract and go through a double sale on it? Just go ahead and work with them. As long as you can build the trust, say, tell you what, we're going to write a contract. I'm going to come in. I'll put in $80,000 into your property. So I'm going to buy your property for, let's say, $200,000. I'll put 80 into it. Doesn't matter what I sell it for. I get the proceeds above that. And you just do a quick double closing, but you don't have any cash up front other than the rehab cost. Something even like that, I would have never thought of that. But the investor coach brought that to my attention.
Adults are so interesting because we believe in the idea of coaching for everybody else except for us. Like I've got 4 kids, I got 4 boys, and every extracurricular activity that they do, we hire a coach. Right? Like, yep. You send them through piano lessons and you hire an instructor, a teacher, somebody to make them a better pianist, right? If they're playing soccer or baseball, they're part of a team and an organization, and they hire a coach. And if they really want to excel, we pay for a one-on-one coach. But for some reason, as we become an adult, or you look at, there's so many sports examples, right? Kobe, Michael Phelps, Tiger Woods, like they all have had these incredible coaches. But yet, as an adult, we don't want to do that. We don't want to hire a coach for ourselves. We think we're just going to figure it out ourselves. We're going to watch enough YouTube videos or whatever, and it works for everybody else except for us. Like, we don't want to hire a coach to educate and train ourselves, but it's cool for everybody else to do it, just not me.
Yep. I think what it comes down to is swallowing your pride. I like to think that I'm a smart guy. I like to think that, I can figure it out. And I've been to the school of hard knocks, but in the end of the day, that's exactly it. It's like swallow your pride a little bit. The other thing is, look, I think most Americans are smart enough that you can spend 2 or 3 or 4 years, maybe lose a decent amount of money ahead of time. But after 4 years, you figure it out and now you start making money. Why? Let me just go ahead and hire a coach. And that was my thought. You're going to bring me from 0 to 60 in 4 months. Well worth the time and effort and the resources.
It's so true. I want to go back. It's stuck in my head. And I think people might miss the message. And so I want to come back to, you're making good money. You're making it far above the median income. And it's just growing from here. And I think people are going to hear the dollar amount and say, okay, he's making $142,000. But maybe what they're not hearing is you're only working 10 to 20 hours. There's plenty of people in our country and society that make 6 figures a year, but they're working 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours in order to do it, or it's a dual income household. So what has tax lien code, what is tax lien investing enabled you to do that you weren't doing before?
So I use the term, I think I got this from the investor coach, but one of the things I wanted to do was leave something of substance to my kids, right? And not just cash. Cash can be easy, but you leave cash to your kids, and well, what's the net result of that? Maybe they're responsible. They can take care of their children and generations beyond that. But when you look at things of substance like land and houses, I use the word land bank, right? So there are properties that I'm acquiring that I will never get rid of, right? Simply because they're in unique locations. If we had to get rid of them because we needed the cash, we certainly could. But being able to leave something of substance to the kids. Now, I don't know whether that's going to be 50 properties or 10, or the number doesn't matter, but you're leaving something of substance. The other thing is with my son. I've been working with my son on this a little bit to do the same thing. So it's teaching him. He's in IT as well. He's doing very well in his career. He's 35, but he's like, look, when I'm 40, I'd like to be doing something else, and maybe this tax investing is the way to go.
What are you doing with all this time now? And like so many people, we are striving for a dollar amount. We want to make a certain dollar amount because and I think the thing that has to click it at some point for people is that it's not the dollar amount we're chasing, it's the thing that it gives us. It's 142 grand doesn't mean anything if you're working 80 hours a week. No. So what is tax lien investing enabled you to do with your time that maybe you couldn't or you weren't doing before?
Yeah, I think so. So the big thing for me is at this point is quality of life. Two things that are for sure in life, right? Death and taxes, right? I'm 57, retired at 56. I say retired, it's just, again, not a regular W-2. I'm still working. And the nice thing is I can do this when I'm 70 years old if I want, right? There's no age limit. Like a pilot stops flying at 65. But what it's done on quality of life, one of the interesting things with my wife, we spent, when I was courting her, right, is I literally spent 14, 15, 16 hours a day with her, just getting to know her, watch her bake, watch her set up her store, watch her run her business. And we were able to share time and spend time together that it might have taken, if you think about a traditional marriage, it might take a year to 2 years to really start learning somebody. And I kind of knew her after about 3 or 4 months. It was like I'd been with her for 2 years. We had spent so much time. So I'm able to go pick my stepdaughter up from school sometimes, go take her to school. It just gives me the ability to spend more time with my wife as she's baking, running her business. And that's what it comes down to. I can spend more time with my parents. I go see my parents just about every day, help them out. I'm active in the church. I'm able to help other people out in the church as well. So it's basically taken the focus off on me per se. Like I've got to have this job and, just enjoy relationships with other people.
All right, Jeff, we're running out of time. So give me a summation. If you could go back to 2 years ago when you showed up in Wilmington and you could tell 2 year ago, Jeff, by joining Tax Lien Code, I was able to...
So I would say I was able to build a business of, and I would even give myself the numbers because I'm a numbers guy. I would actually lay the whole plan out that you're going to do this and this and this, right? So you're going to invest in tax liens, you're going to invest in tax deeds, you're going to go after properties that you want with tax deed auctions or tax lien sales. You're going to buy certificates and then turn around and so basically get years 1, 2, and 3 and immediately turn around and file a TDA, right? Because you do want those properties. Here's the path to being able to do this, right? Now, the other 50% of me is I'm a little cynical sometimes, so I would have had to convince myself. But it's basically, if you look at a traditional person, if you're 30, 35, I don't care if you're 60, and you are looking at, it's cliche, but if you're looking for more financial freedom and stability, honestly, tax liens and tax deeds are a way better avenue to building wealth, I will say, than just trying to work a 9-to-5 job making whatever it is a year.
Okay, I lied. I got one more question for you.
Okay.
You mentioned coming out of or the person trying to buy their first house. And you were saying, hey, don't go on the market, pay market value, buy a tax deed, and live in that house instead. One of the things that I've discovered that's so exciting for me is so long. It took decades for people to get excited about investing, for them to realize that, this financial planner that I have trusted for decades isn't really serving my best interest. that I could have done so much more. And it took, like, our normal demographic was 40, 50, 60 years old, because it just took that long to become jaded and realize that there's better ways to invest. And one of the things that we're seeing right now is so many younger people just graduating college or in college or finishing high school or in their 20s, realizing, like, my parents weren't able to accomplish what I thought. Like, they're complaining about their lives and their livelihood. And so we're seeing so many younger people who are interested in a alternative way to invest. What would you say to that person? You've got kids that are kind of in that age or becoming that age. So what advice, as somebody that has lived a career life, a corporate career, you've done so many different things, and now you found this, what would you tell that person that is just getting started?
So, yeah, the first, and then being cynical with it, is, hey, if you love traveling 100% of the time, you love living out of a suitcase and waking up in a hotel or a motel in a different city every week, and just grind it out, then go get a regular, go get a professional job of some type, selling or doing whatever. But if you want to be able to, again, cliche, but control your own destiny, by working hard, by trusting in yourself, by not relying on somebody that is not going to be loyal to you in the end. Honestly, tax lien and tax deeds are the best. The reason being is it'll open your eyes to other avenues. So you start investing, you start building your own business, you're going to meet other bankers, you're going to meet other real estate professionals. Who knows? Maybe somebody says, hey, we'd like you to join our team and you can run this special program, because, by the way, there are hedge funds that are competing with me, they're competing with you, and they're going in, they're trying to buy swaths of land. And so I know some friends that do that, and they make a pretty penny doing it. It just opens your avenue to other possibilities. Real estate has always been the way to make money in America, and real estate for the foreseeable future will always be the ways to make money. Can you make money in Bitcoin and crypto? Sure. I can tell you, I haven't invested $1 in crypto in the last 10, 15 years, right? But missed that boat. But real estate has always been key. You have ebbs and flows, ups and downs, but real estate always comes back.
Well, Jeff, you earlier said that you think you're average. You're not average. You're extraordinary. You're doing incredible things. I'm glad you're part of the Tax and Code family. And I can't wait for more conversations, because I've got about a whole page of notes of things that I want to come back to and talk more with you. So I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. You dropped incredible bombs of wisdom on us today, and your experience and your trajectory are not average, sir. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Enjoyed the time today.
Take care.